last Mishnah and the Gemara after it. It's Maseches Makos. I'm going to be explaining a little bit about the Mishnah and about the Gemara, and then after a number of minutes, I'll move towards the actual, like a Siyyum, doing the very last piece and doing the Hadron and so on and so forth. One of the themes that runs through the Mishnah is an interconnection between the human realm and shamayim, heaven. And there's some very, very interesting aspects of that we'll see. Everybody knows the Gemara, Tanur Shalachnai, and Loi B'Shamayim Hi, and how the termination of Rosh Chodesh depends on the Beis Din, and even physical changes in a person's body, like Psul and Chayzrin for Bas Gimel, depend on the determination of the Beis Din. So the whole physical reality is really determined by the halachic determination of Beis Din. So this is one kind of very interesting interaction between Shamayim and a Beis Din Shalmata. There's a story of, I think it was the Rogachover, that somebody came to him with a chicken, and it seemed to be very pashut that it was a treifa, and he spent hours. It was a big guy, and he spent hours on it, and finally was able to say that it was kosher. And afterwards they asked him, like, what's the big deal? And he says, you'll see. And the next day a woman comes and is crying, and she says her husband has been diagnosed with a deathly illness by the doctors. She described it exactly, and he said, it'll be okay. And it was okay. And because it was exactly that machla that the chicken had. And he was able, by determining some way in which it could be considered not a treifa, he was able to affect the physical reality. And there are other things that we'll see in the Mishnah and in the Gemara that have to do with that type of interaction. The Mishnah starts, Kol chai v'krisas shaloku niftiru biy'dei krisasam. An interesting idea that if you're chayiv kares of course is a punishment from Beis Din Shalmaila, from Shamayim, and has to do with an early death and other things. And there are certain averos that if you're over them, you get both malchus, which is lashes, and also kares. But if the Beis Din actually does the malchus on you, gives you the lashes, then it turns out that you're actually not going to even get the kares. So in a way, the malchus that you get down here by the Beis Din Shalmata saves you from the terrible gezerah of Beis Din Shalmala. And then there's all sorts of complicated questions of why you would be getting malchus along with kares and so on. And they learn it out from a pasuk, Shenemar, V'nikla achicha lo yinecha. Kishaloko hariku achicha. As soon as he finished getting the malchus, then he's like everybody else. In other words, he doesn't have kares. Divri Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel. V'amar Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel, he also says, Mayim ha'oivra avera achas noitul nafshi aleh. Oisa mitzvah achas alachas kama v'kama shenitinosin lo nafshi. That there's like a kal v'chaymer, that obviously if a person does one avera, and because of that he's going to get such a severe punishment as kares, then certainly if he does one mitzvah, that he's going to get a reward for that mitzvah that's as big as the punishment is large for doing one avera. And then there's Rashi brings where the logic is for that kal v'chaymer, why it is that you get more sechar proportionately. It's a kal v'chaymer, for sure. That the sechar for a mitzvah is much more than the punishment for an avera. We learn this from the pasuk in which it talks about actual kares. Shenemar v'nichas ha'nefashos ha'osos v'omer asher yasa oisam odom b'chai bohem. Pa kol ha'yoshev v'lo over avera noisin lo yischar k'oisam mitzvah. So this is a very, very interesting klal. The Chumash has a whole discussion of various averas for which you're going to get kares, and it says, don't do this, this is terrible, this is horrible, and then it says, all the things that I'm telling you to do, asher yaseh odom b'chai bohem. So it says, asher yaseh odom b'chai bohem, but here it's telling you all the things that you shouldn't do. So what does it mean, asher yaseh odom b'chai bohem? If it's telling you what not to do, and it's saying, if you do all the things that you're supposed to do, you will live, then what does it mean you're doing all the things you're supposed to do? It should be, if you don't do, obviously it's implying, if you don't do the things that you shouldn't be doing, then you will live. In other words, the asiya, the doing that it's talking about, is the refraining from doing the things that you're not allowed to do. So this is a very big yesod, that for every lav that it says you shouldn't do this, then the very fact that you're not doing it gives you a big schus. And the schus is v'chai b'hem. Then there's a question of what is the relevance of that to this issue of malchus? If you get malchus, that you're not going to get chorus. So it could be that the very act of accepting to do the malchus, or various ways that you can learn out why it would be that getting the malchus would clear you from getting chorus. It depends if there's edim and hasra, all kinds of complicated discussions in the Gemara. But one of the things that ties into the general principle that I mentioned before was how the Beis Din Shel Mata is able to, in a sense, overturn the gzeira of the Beis Din Shel Mala. By giving you malchus, they're able, therefore, to cancel the need for shamayim to give you chorus. And so if a person might think that what a burden it is that you have chorus and you have malchus for what you did, actually, it was a gift. Getting the malchus was a gift because it saved you from chorus. Rabbi Omer, Hari hu Omer, rak chazak lebilti yachol adam, es adam, ki adam hu nefesh. Umayim adam shenafshik odom kotzim imenu. It says you shouldn't eat blood. Who wants to eat blood? It's disgusting. Aparish imenu mekabel schar. If you don't do it, we see that you get reward. Gezel barayish shenafshik odom isabel lehem, that you do want, you have a taiva for them. Umechamdosan haparish men alachas kama v'kama sheyiska loy l'doiris 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 of atsoif kol l'doiris. So again, we see there's like a kal v'chaymer, that the amount of reward that you would get is the kol l'doiris, and Rashi brings the reason that this is it's a ratio, there's an actual mathematical ratio of alpayim doiris and 5, etc. Why he gets it, you would be getting such a fantastic reward in comparison to the smaller punishment that you would get. And then there's a very interesting, it says, Reb Chananya ben Akasha Omer, Rotza Kadosh Baruch Hu l'zakis es Yisrael, lefikoch hirba lem Torah mitzvah, shenemar Hashem chafetz l'man tzidko yagdol Torah v'yadir. So first of all, this is the last Mishnah in the Masechta, so it ends up with a pasuk, and a very nice pasuk, gives you a very good feeling after all this discussion of Malchus, and we'll see also the Gemara itself will also end on a very upbeat note, Akiva, Nichamtanu, and so on. But we have a very interesting principle here, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a lot of lavin, which in theory you might feel are extra burdensome, that all of these things that you can't do, that you're not allowed to do, that you get a terrible punishment for. But it turns out that it's exactly the opposite. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it in order, l'zakas Yisrael, to give us that many more benefits. By just not doing those things, even the things that would have been disgusting to us that we would never think of doing, just by refraining from doing it, we get schus. And for refraining from the things that we actually would want to do, the schus that we get is so much more. And again, so you have several ikroinos of the ratio of reward is much greater than the amount of punishment that you would get, and that alavin are actually meant, they were deliberately added into the Torah to give you schus rather than the opposite. So it's a very, very interesting type of reasoning over here.
So now we're going to go, that was the end of the Mishnah, and now we're going to go to the Gemara. Now, the Gemara actually is brought in Maseches Megillah. And I'm going to talk about my father, Mordechai Eliyahu, about the name Mordechai, word between Purim and Pesach. Obviously, Maseches Megillah is appropriate. There's a series of Mishnahs in Megillah. It says, Ein, Bain, such and such, to something else. There's no difference between this and that, except for the following. You have Ein ben Yom Tov l'Shabbos, elo eichel nefesh bilvad, Ein ben Shabbos le'yom Kippurim, elo shezez doini biy'dei odom, zez doini b'karis. And a whole series of Ein ben this, le'bein that, except for such and such. And that's how the Mishnah was arranged. There are deeper reasons why certain themes were combined, but one of the simple pshat reasons is that this was recited Baal Peh by Tanoim. People would memorize and would say instead of having a book written, you'd call somebody over and they would recite, and so they had things that were similar to make it easy to remember, but again, there are also deeper reasons why they combine these. So we have this Mishnah, Ein bein Shabbos liyom Kippurim, zeh zedoini biy'dei odom, v'zeh zedoini b'koros. So here we have something again having to do with bidey odom and shamayim, which is one of the main themes of our Mishnah and Gemara. But here it's a Mishnah somewhere else. So the Gemara starts discussing this Mishnah. Say holin and tashlumin, zev shovin, money, and then he brings a Mishnah. Now they say, Tnan Hosam. We learned a Mishnah over there. Where's over there? In our Gemara in Makos. So this is a Megillah, and they're talking about the Mishnah that I just read in Makos. Tnan Hosam. Kol Chayve Krisis Shaloktu Nifteru Midei Krisos. That's the Mishnah that we had. And it goes through that whole Mishnah. It's bringing it here for the discussion here in Megillah. And it ends up the difference is, again, ein bein, the differences between things. This one has, if you do it b'mezid, then you get punished with the odom, and that one, if you do it b'mezid, your punishment is chorus. Now it's interesting, of course, chorus is bidey shamayim, but instead of saying ze ikar zedoni b'dei odom, ze ikar zedoni mino shamayim, it says chorus. And I point that out because in our Gemara, when they have exactly the same discussion, which after all they're quoting, it does use the word shamayim, because in our Gemara that's kind of the ikar of what they're talking about, the difference between the beis din of odom, the odom, and of shamayim. So in our Gemara it says ze ikar zedoine b'dei odom, v'ze ikar zedoine b'dei shamayim. Right? It's stressing the difference that chorus is b'dei shamayim. So now that was the end of the same piece of Gemara that was quoted in Megillah, and now starts the Gemara that we have here in Makos. It's a very interesting statement. Omer Rav Adabar Ava, Omer Rav, Halacha Rab Chananya ben Gamliel. He says that this is what Rab Chananya ben Gamliel said, and that if you get Malkus, then you're exempt now from the punishment of Bidei Shamayim. You don't get chorus. Omer Rabbi Yosef, so Rabbi Yosef now says something. It sounds like a wisecrack. It sounds like it's almost like a joke, but it's very serious. He says, Man solik le'elev v'osev v'omar. Solik, we're going to see afterwards also at the end of the Gemara, left, we left the Masechta, we're going to use the word solika, but who left, in other words, who left this world and went up, le'ela, went up above to heaven, v'osa, and came back, v'omar, and told us. So in other words, you're saying that the halacha is like Rab Chananya ben Gamliel. How do you know this? So there's actually a different interpretation that you can give that makes more sense afterwards in the Gemara. It's not only how did you know this, but how do we know that we could learn from a pasuk? He's saying if you get Malkus, then it exempts you from chorus. And we learned it from a pasuk. But who says that you can learn from a pasuk what shamayim is going to do? Shamayim does what shamayim does. How do you know that you can make a limit from a pasuk? And because you made the limit from the pasuk, so shamayim now has to be mevatel their chorus? So there's different ways of interpreting this, but again, this is an interpretation that fits in with what I said is that general theme of the interaction between beis din shel mat and beis din shel mala. Amalei Abaya Elohad Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, no, look, this is a known. Shloisha dvarim also beis din shel mata v'skimu beis din shel mala al yodam. Right, so he's bringing in, this is a known thing, that you had three things where beis din shel mata, the earthly court decided something, and the heavenly court agreed with them. So you could say the same thing. Man solik le'elev osev omar. Why didn't they say over there, when they brought down that very interesting idea that there were three cases where the heavenly court agreed with the earthly court, why didn't somebody ask your question, how do you know this from heaven? Elo kroi kodashinan. Because we learned it from a pasuk. Achanami kroi kodashinan. It says we learned this idea that both that the human court does something and that the heavenly court agrees, but also about the Malkus. And this is what Rabbi Chananya said in the beginning, that we learn it from a pasuk, And this is now the support for that idea. And then there's a discussion. Gufa, they're talking about that specific idea that was just brought. How do we know these three cases? So they bring psukim. So they bring a pasuk, and from the pasuk you could make a drash that tells you that the Beis Din Shalmala agreed with the Beis Din Shalmata. And then they bring some more examples where Ruach HaKodesh comes in. Begimel mekoymis hafia Ruach HaKodesh bebeis din shel Shem, or bebeis din shel Shmuel Haramasi, or bebeis din shel Shloimeh. That Ruach HaKodesh actually entered and kind of gave a deposition, gave witness in the human court. And how do we know all these things? So we know it so they bring a pasuk, you darshan from these words. So now there's a very interesting situation. If this actually happened, right, then presumably people who were in that court experienced it. Somebody there was a Navi or Shlomo Melech or David. They experienced the Ruach HaKodesh and they knew about this. And they would report it as part of Torah Shebal Peh. And then you have a pasuk which is recording this event. When the Nevi'im wrote about what happened, they wrote it up in the pasuk and they gave it as a Masorah that you can darshan from this what they knew actually happened. So you have what happened and what's darshan from a pasuk, again an interaction, and all about this very interesting idea of the human court doing something and the Beis Din Shalmala agreeing with it. The next thing that the Gemara discusses has to do with the amount of mitzvahs, and that is like tied into what I said at the end of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Torah gave us lavim in order l'zakis as Yisrael. So it's tied in that sense and in several other ways. I have Dorish Rabbi Simlai, Sheish Me'os V'Shloisha Shei Mitzvahs Nemer Lo L'Moshe. So this is the famous Gemara. Everybody knows there are 613 mitzvahs. How Ramach, Evarim, and Shasa Gidim, and Shasa is for the amount of days in the year according to the Shemesh, Shemai Zechama. How do you know this? Torah, B'Gematria 611. Of course, two were Mipi Adibor, that the first two of the Aseres Hadibros were given by Kadosh Baruch Hu straight. So Torah Tziv Olanu Moshe did 611 out of the 613, and two came directly from heaven. So that's that famous Gemara. And then he says, Bo David ve'amidon ala chasisrei. So David HaMelech, and it's interesting, this is like the expression, I guess in Yeshivish English, comes David, and made it into 11. What does it mean? So Rashi talks about this, and then there's Mefarshim. What does it mean he made it into 11? I mean, he took away 602, but he made 11 principles. So what does it mean, 11 principles? So they say because the people were not tzaddikim anymore, it was very difficult for them to do taryag. So what does that mean? So David said you don't have to do the other ones. So again, there's a whole discussion, very deep ideas of what does it mean? Did he organize it into 11 principles which made it easier to follow and therefore easier to keep? Or were they tzaddikim even if they only kept these 11? But these are very deep and very general principles. If you keep all these 11, as you can see that the Gemara enumerates, you'd be pretty big tzaddik. And then there's a whole discussion. This one came and made it 6, and this one came and made it 2, and then this one came and made it 1. And again, this fits in the general idea that you have the Gadol Ador, whether it's David HaMelech or some of the other Nevi'im, and they are able somehow to manipulate the 613, the Taryag mitzvahs, and make it into something else, which you would think is not something that biy'dei odom they could do, but it was like a shas etchak. It was a time when there were terrible situations, and it seems like the Beis Din Shalmala was masking to this. And then we come towards the end of our Gemara. It says. So I'll just read the 1. Bo Amos ve'midon al achas shenemar koyamar Hashem lebeis Yisrael dirshuni v'chiyu. Okay, dirshuni, seek me, look me, try to understand, and you will live. Maskil Rav Nachman Yitzchak Eimer dirshuni v'chol Torah kula. Maybe meant be drash doirish the whole Torah, so it's not only one principle. Elabo Chabakuk ve'midon al achas shenemar v'tzadik be'emunasai yichya. So this is, they're taking very seriously all these psukim. There's a pasuk in Tehillim very interesting, which enumerates the qualities that they say David considered to be the principal. So we know that we have the minyan and mitzvahs in many different Sfarim and Rishonim, how many mitzvahs there are and which they are, but you see here in the Gemara that it was already something that the Nevi'im and even David HaMelech and so on were doing. And it wasn't just numbers, it was important principles. Amr Rebbe Rachinina, Arba Gzeiras Gozer Moshe Rabbeinu al Yisrael, Bo Arba Nevi'im Ubitlam. Imagine, Moshe Rabbeinu said 4 things in 4 psukim that were basically Gzeiras against the Jewish people, it would seem. And 4 different Nevi'im, 4 Nevi'im were mevatel these Gzeiras. How could that be? I mean, how could it be that, again, it's a strange thing. Here we don't have based in shamayim and based in mata, but we have Moshe Rabbeinu, and we have later Nevi'im. There's no way that a later Navi can possibly mevatel something that Moshe Rabbeinu said. It sounds almost as absurd as if you said that we said something down here and the shamayim was maskim, or we decided something, so shamayim has to not give him a chorus because we gave him Makos. And they bring psukim and they prove it and they show what these things were. Now, again, there's a lot to discuss in this kind of what does it mean that these Nevi'im were mevatel. So one of the interpretations given is that when Moshe Rabbeinu said it, it was open to a certain amount of interpretation, and depending on the interpretation, that's how it would actualize in the world, in reality. By the Nevi'im being able to understand in depth what Moshe Rabbeinu meant and giving it a much better interpretation, basically they were able to overturn the negative intent, so to speak, of Moshe Rabbeinu's Gezerah. So really, lemafrei, you could see that it wasn't necessarily a Gezerah Ra, it just had to be interpreted in the right way. And this is another Yahrzeit, just like I mentioned the story of the Rogachover. You have the Chalamis of Yosef, Havoy Novoi, where the brothers interpret it and say, we're going to come and bow down to you. Of course, that's not what Yosef meant, and that's not what the Cholam was. He was talking about something else. The real meaning of the Cholam, the first Cholam, it says the Tevuah was bowing down to his Tevuah. And it's obvious what happens at the end, that all their food comes from him. But they gave it the wrong interpretation and brought about the actualization of their wrong interpretation, that they ended up bowing to him. And the stars and sun and moon and stars bowing to him, as far as I can see, what it means is that he was beyond fate. That it's not like everything about us is determined, our future is determined by the stars, by astrology, or by the seasons that the sun and moon and stars represent. But he says, Lelikim Pisrainim, and by having the Siyata Dishmaya, he was able to circumvent fate. So that would be the correct interpretation, I think, of Yosef's Chalamis. And the brothers gave it the wrong interpretation. They're going to come bow. And as a result, that's what actually happened. So we have this kind of ikaron that it says any kind of cholam. Chazal say that you should only tell it to somebody who loves you, because how they interpret it determines how it's going to actualize. So again, a very interesting interconnection between what shamayim does to us here and what we are doing. That we can, in a sense, affect what shamayim will be doing to us. So one of the gezeros that they're talking about that Moshe Rabbeinu did that was overturned by later Nevi'im, it says "V'vadatem b'goyim," that you'll be lost in the nations. Bo Yishayahu v'Omar v'Yamahu Yitaka b'Shofar Gadol. There'll be a big shofar and everybody will come, and we won't be lost in the goyim anymore. Omar Rav Mistafina Mihai Kro. I'm actually still afraid of this pasuk v'vadatem b'goyim.
Maskilo Rav Papa Dilma Kaveda Mispakeshes, that when they say it's a Veda, it's lost in the goyim. What does it mean lost? Lost means something that you're looking for. So maybe we're lost, but like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shekhinah is going to be looking for us. The Chsiv, and he brings a pasuk. He says, "No, Elam Yisayf, V'achalaisem Eretz Oivechem," that you'll be swallowed, eaten by the land of your enemies. So that's what frightened him. So now they're trying to calm him down. Maskefla Marzutra, Dilma Kachilas Kishuin V'Diluin. Maybe it means not a complete destruction. And now they're going to bring the stories that are going to lead us towards the actual scene. Ukvar Raya, Rabbi Yulil, Rabbi Elazar, Ben Azariah, Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Akiva, Mahalchim B'derech, V'shamu Kol Hamoyni Shel Roimim. And they're bringing a story
how they're walking, and this, of course, was the time of the Roman conquest and utter destruction. And they heard from very far away, they heard loud sounds of all the Romans. And it was a terrible thing because it just showed how strong they were and how completely destroyed the Beis Hamikdash and the Jewish presence in Eretz Yisrael were. V'itchilu boichen, they started to cry. Rabbi Kippur's laughing. Amar lo mipnei ma atem mesachek, why are you laughing? Amar lehem va'atem mipnei ma atem boichen, why are you crying? Amar lehem halolu kushim shemishtachvim la'atzovim umekatrim lavetz gechovim yoshvin betach v'hashke v'onu beis hadoim raglei elkeinu saruf ba'esh v'lo nipke. They're doing avodah zarah and they're having a good time, and our Beis Hamikdash is burnt. What, we shouldn't cry? Amar lehem lekach ani matzachik. That's exactly why I'm laughing. If here again we have the same kind of ikaron. If God is going to do such good to these terrible people who destroyed his heichal or avodah zarah, then we know already from before, we saw that the amount of schar for a mitzvah is much bigger than the amount of punishment for an avera, hundreds of times more. So if you see that here are these avodah zarah who did such terrible things, and they destroyed the Beis Hamikdash and doing avodah zarah in the Beis Hamikdash, and they're so successful and happy and so on and so forth. Imagine what kind of sachar, how great it will be for us. So by seeing this, he was able to be comforted. So again, there's several different layers here. One is turning things upside down. It's like a theme running through this, seeing everything upside down and the opposite, shamayim and based on shilmata, and one thing overturning the other. And I imagine that he's also thinking of this ikaron, that if he gives this a good interpretation, if he sees this terrible thing happens and he's able, this is Rabbi Akiva, and he's able to say what's happening in such a positive light, that he's actually affecting what's going to happen. And then another story, Pamachas hayu oilin Yerushalayim, kivin shegiu lahar tzofim, which you can see from our window, koro biy'deihem, kivin shegiu lahar bayis, rou shual sheyotzim beis kodesh kadashim. This is the famous story, right? They see a shual, right, a fox or whatever animal, walking around where the kodesh kodashim was. That's how desolate it was. It was complete and utter desolation. And we know that afterwards the Romans destroyed all the agriculture in Eretz Yisrael. They plowed the fields with salt so it shouldn't grow, and it was impossible to live here. Hitchilu hein boichen. Rabbi Kiva mitzacher. Again, the same thing. Amr lo mipnei matem mitzacher, Amr lo mipnei matem boichen. Amr lo mokim shekasu boi v'azori yikarev yumos v'achshav shu'alim olchu boi lo nipke. It says that Azor will die if he comes towards, like in the Beis Hamikdash, if he's tamei, and somebody comes to the kodesh kodashim, he'll die. And look at these people; these worse than any kind of zor. Why are they not destroyed? That's exactly why I'm laughing. In Tanakh, there's a pasuk in Yeshayahu, and he's talking about what a Kadosh Baruch Hu told him to do, to write something down, and he's saying, I'll bring as edis reliable witnesses, Uriah HaKohen and Zechariah ben Yebrachiyahu. So the Gemara asks, V'chemani and Uriah Eitzel Zechariah, what does one have to do with the other? Why is Yeshayahu mentioning the two of them? Uriah b'mikdash Rishon and Zechariah b'mikdash Sheni. They're in different time periods and talking about different situations. So what's the relevance of one to the other? Elo tola kosuv n'vasei shel Zechariah n'vasei shel Uriah. That by mentioning this in the pasuk, and it's actually not only in the pasuk. I mean, this is a Kadosh Baruch Hu told Yeshayahu, and Yeshayahu is talking, and the pasuk is about that. So it's not just the pasuk, but by tying it together in this way and bringing it as a pasuk, it's telling us that these two adias, these two nevuas, are tolui, so to speak, are dependent one on the other. They're tied one to the other. And Tola hakosuf nevasei shel Zechariah and nevasei shel Uriah. But Uriah ksiv lechem biglalchem tzion sadeh techarash. Zechariah ksiv oid yeshvu skenim v'skenis b'rchoivus Yerushalayim. So we have two nevuas. One that
Yahrzeit is going to be basically in Yerushalayim. It's going to be a plowed field. It's going to be totally desolate. It's going to be totally destroyed. And then we have a later Navi saying, Oid Yeshvu, the old people will be sitting in the streets of Yerushalayim and so on. The Yerushalayim will have buildings, it will have streets, it will have old people. Old people will be relaxed and sitting in the street. Completely opposite of this utter desolation. And by tying the two together, I would have thought, who knows, it wouldn't have happened. But now that I see by seeing this terrible, utter destruction, unprecedented, of the whole Yahrzeit and so on, and that's one thing that was mentioned in this pasuk, which ties together two nevuos. So obviously, therefore, the second part that's tied in will also take place. In other words, Yerushalayim will be built, and so on and so forth. Now, there's again, in all of these things, there are many, many deep issues. Even the fact that it says Uriah, it's actually not brought down from Uriah, it's Micha, and there's a question of why are they bringing it from the shame of Uriah if it was really Micha, and you could see some interesting things coming out of that itself, of why Chazal here are bringing it in Uriah's name, because actually Micha's prophecy didn't happen. He came with a negative prophecy, but they did tshuva at the time, so by deliberately choosing Uriah, I think they're making a point here again about you can have a prophecy, a nevuah that seems to be forecasting disaster, but Bnei Yisrael always have the possibility of doing tshuva, and that's another way of interacting with the gzera of shamayim. So the end of this story, when Rabbi Akiva says what he says, and he shows them how he turned upside down what they saw as utter destruction and despair, he says, no, this is actually just the first part of a nevuah, and again, I think that maybe he meant to say something that would actually cause this to happen, or help cause it happen. They answer him, V'amruloi, Akiva nichamtonu, Akiva nichamtonu. Okay, you were menachem us, you gave us consolation, and say Hadron Allah Elohin Aloikin Oslicha La Maseches Makos. So that's the end of the Masechta, and now I'll do that. Just to explain to people listening, we're telling the Masechta that we're finishing it, but we're going to come back, we're going to return to it, we're going to learn it again, and also it says Kol Hashem Alachas B'Chol Yom Tach Lo Yishol B'Olam Haba. And so there's a whole issue of tying in learning to Olam Haba, and so we're talking about in this world and the next world, again, the same kind of topic that I was talking about before. We're saying we're going to return to you, and you should return to us. We shouldn't forget it, and also the schus that we should have in Olam Haba. So there's going to be a parallel. We're going to talk about Hadron Aloch, and then it's going to be Hadroch Alon. We're going to return to you, and you're going to return to us. And that's going to repeat. Hadron Aloch Maseches Makos, Vadroch Alon. Daiton Aloch Maseches Makos, V'daitoch Alon. Loi nisna sheminoch Maseches Makos, V'loi sisna sheminon. Loi ba'al mohadein, V'loi ba'al meda'osir. Hadron Aloch Maseches Makos, Vadroch Alon. Daiton Aloch Maseches Makos, V'daitoch Alon. Loi nisna sheminoch Maseches Makos, V'loi sisna sheminon. Loi ba'al mohadein, V'loi ba'al meda'osir. Hadron Aloch Maseches Makos, Vadroch Alon. Daiton Aloch Maseches Makos, V'daitoch Alon. Loi nisna sheminoch Maseches Makos, V'loi sisna sheminon. Loi ba'al mohadein, V'loi ba'al meda'osir. Yirosim F'necha Adonai Eloheinu V'leivseinu Shetehei Toroscha U'Menaseinu Ba'olam Hazeh V'tei Imonu L'Olam Haba Chanina Bar Papa, Rami Bar Papa, Nachman Bar Papa, Achai Bar Papa, Abamori Bar Papa, Rafim Bar Papa, Rachish Bar Papa, Sercha Bar Papa, Ada Bar Papa, Dora Bar Papa. Hareb na Adonai Eloheinu Slivrei Yisrael Schab V'finu V'finu Yisrael B'chol Beis Yisrael V'niyah Kulon Anachim Tzaseinu Tzatzei Amchol Beis Yisrael Kulonu Yoyitei Shemecha V'nodei Yisrael Ma'ivai Tachakmeni V'tzasecha Ki Lo'elam Yili Yili B'Soni V'Kukecha L'man Lo Yevosh Lo'elam Lo Yeshkach V'Kukecha Ki Bam Chisoni Baruch Atah Adonai L'Amdeinu Kukecha Amen 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 Sela V'Ed Moedim Nachmu V'Fenecha Adonai Eloheinu V'Loseinu Shezanta V'Kenim Yoshu Beis HaMedrash V'Loi Mishvat Kronis She'anu Mashkimim V'Hem Mashkimim Anu Mashkimim L'Divra Torah V'Hem Mashkimim L'Divarim B'Telem Anu Amelu V'Hem Amelu Anu Amelu M'Kabel Sachar V'Hem Amelu V'Hem M'Kabel Sachar Anu Ratzim V'Hem Ratzim Anu Ratzim L'Chai L'Am V'V V'Hem Ratzim L'Ver Shachas Shneimar V'Ato Elohim תורידם לבר שחס, אנשי דומים בירמו, ולכת ימיהם וניתקו. יוזם כדך אדוני להי, שם של זרתני לסיים מסכת מקס, כפת עזרני להתחיל מסכת ספרים אחרים, לסיים ולמוד למי לשמוע לעשות חיים, אז כל דברי סבא תרסכו באבא. זכוס כל התנועים המרואים, תלמיד החכמים יעמד לי, ולזר שלא תמוש, התוירה מפי זרים זרי עד העולם. בסיסקיים בי, בסעלתך, צנתך, הישך, בשיפך, תשמור, עליך, והקיצויך, היא תסיפך. כי בירו יומך, ויסיפו לך שנויס חיים. אורך ממינם, תסמוי לו אישר חבד. I know it's what you tain, and I know it's what you
You're going to say Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah, to this Kaddish, and this Kaddish is, it's a little bit different than the usual one, but I just want to tell you what it is so you'll have kavanah when you're saying it. It's going to start out in the same way, Yiskadol Shmei Rabbah, but then it says, V'olma Hu Osir L'Yischadato. It's talking about in the future world. Ula'achim Messiah, so it's talking about Chias HaMesim. Ula'aska L'chai Olma, to have eternal life. Ulamivne Karta Yerushalayim, and to rebuild Yerushalayim, the city. Ulashachla Leichala B'gaveh, and also to build the Beis HaMikdash. Ulumeker P'chana Nuchra Me'ara, to take away the foreign worship that is in that place. Ulasabel P'chana D'Shmayim, to put the worship of God there. Yamlech Kuchabrichu Malchusei. So this is talking about something that's very close, both in the sense of the Siyyum and also for the reason for the Siyyum. Yizgadel v'yizgadesh Shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yitzchadus olachim Mesayot ula'aska l'chai almo u'mitnei karta Yerushalayim u'shachar leichala v'gavei u'me'akar p'chanu nu'cha'ab me'arab u'lasava p'chanu d'shmai u'lasrei v'yamlich v'chubrichu u'malchusei v'karei v'chayichoyni v'meichoyni v'chayei t'chol beis Yisrael ba'agolov b'zman kariv v'imru amen. Shmei Rabbah Yisvarach Yishtabach, Yisvarach Yisvarach Yisnasei, Yisador, Yisador, Yisalol, Shmei D'Kushov, Richu, the Dom Yikov V'chasov, Yishrasod, Yishrasod, Nechem Asod, and Rabbi Mobim, Roamei, Ayisrael, Rabbanov, Tamidoin, Balkol, Nabidei, Samidoin, Balkol, Mados, Kimberais, Divas, Rebein, Divachol, Asar, Basar, Yehei, Loin, Uchoin, Shalom, Rabbi, Chinef, Chizador, Rachamin, V'chayin Arichin, Umzener, V'chei, V'karam, Mikadov, Abba, Hoin, Divishmayav, Roamei, Yehei, Shalom, Rabbi, Shmayav, V'chaim, Aleinu, V'kol Yisrael, Roamei, Oiseh Shalom, V'maimov, Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'kol Yisrael, Roamei.